So this year's Remembrance Sunday is my 28th Remembrance Sunday as an ordained minister. And never has Remembrance Sunday felt so vivid, so real. Never has Remembrance Sunday felt in some way so urgent, as major war, of course, rages in Europe, in Ukraine. But not just in Ukraine. I did a little internet search yesterday to see how many nations across the world are at war, either with themselves or with other nations. And you'll find this on the information table at the back if you want to know more. And of course, it looks really bad because, of course, one of the nations at war is Russia, which is about a third of the world. But it's about 30 nations. 30 nations currently are at war, either with themselves or with other nations. And it's not good enough. It doesn't need to be this way. And our scriptures present us with such a different vision of the world. Let me read again from that beautiful vision given to us by the prophet Isaiah. That vision that talks about the nations beating their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Swords into plowshares, spears into pruning hooks. These verses seem so relevant as well because they remind us that there is a direct correlation between war and starvation. There is a direct correlation between how much the world is at peace and how well people are fed. Even here in the UK, this is our reality. This winter. Yes, it's because of the aftershocks of the pandemic and the lockdowns. Yes, it's because of the disastrous but thankfully short-lived Truss administration. But it's also because of Putin's terrible war in Ukraine. Families in the UK, families in this city, families in our own community are not going to have the food they need. And of course, it's even worse in other parts of the world. I remember one of our baptism families from earlier on in the year, and the dad had family in West Africa, and he was very, very concerned at the time that no grain was getting through at all from Ukraine. When nations are at war, people starve. But the converse is true. When nations are at peace, then people begin to be fed and nurtured and nourished once again. All the energy that goes into waging war can go into more productive, more helpful, more fruitful things. And so this beautiful image of the weapons of war being turned into implements of agriculture is so, so true. But how is this vision realizable? How dare this prophet hold out this vision to us in a world today where 30 nations are at war? Well, let's look at the verses 2 to 3 of his vision. In days to come, he says, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains and shall be raised above the hills. All the nations shall stream to it. Well, there's a paradox in itself, a stream that runs upwards. Something strange is happening here, something miraculous, something supernatural, something that can't be brought about from within our own wherewithal and our own resources. This is God's doing. The Lord in his house is somehow like a magnet for all the nations of the world, and they are drawn to it. Verse 3, many people shall come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." What the prophet is saying is that when the nations and the leaders of the nations look beyond themselves, when they look beyond their own petty ambitions to the living God for learning and wisdom and instruction, that is the only hope for peace. And the Judeo-Christian tradition, which has only ever really been the prime mover for a peaceful and a just world, the only real viable option, this tradition in which we are proud to stand, it teaches the ultimate importance not of the love of power, but of the power of love. It's a totally different way of thinking and acting in the world. But it's the only chance, it's the only hope for peace in the world. What is our responsibility in all of this? Well, first of all, it's to pray. Paul writes in our second reading, "First of all, then I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving should be made for everyone, for kings, and for all who are in high positions, so that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and dignity." Pray for our leaders, Paul says. Pray constantly. Pray for peace. But of course, we're so mindful, aren't we, that there's no such thing as peace without justice. I hope COP27 has been in your prayers this week. And we're very mindful, aren't we, of those voices clamouring for justice, those voices from those more vulnerable parts of the world, clamouring for justice, clamouring for help, clamouring for aid, that the whole world together may strive for a safer world, a more inhabitable world. Without justice, there is no peace. But we do need to be praying constantly for those in authority, even if we don't agree with them, especially if we don't agree with them, because it's God alone who's going to change them. But also, our responsibility is to lead by example, which is why this vision of Isaiah's, this beautiful vision of a world transformed, ends with this exhortation, "O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord." Let us walk in the light of the Lord. How can we expect the nations to be godly and peaceful if we, the people of God, are not godly and peaceful in our own lives and in our own relationships? I love the way this huge vision just boils down to each of our own individual responsibility to walk a straight and a peaceful path through life. World peace begins in our own hearts and in our own lives. The other thing I've noticed on my 28th Remembrance Sunday is how, shall we say, what shall we call it? The secular season of Advent grows ever longer. Every year it seems to start earlier. Christmas decorations are everywhere. The Christmas lights are up on Northenden High Street, even before we've honoured our fallen. I find that deeply offensive and deeply upsetting. Because let's face it, all of those lights, all of those decorations, they're not about the God of the manger and the stable. They're about the God that so much of the world does serve, which is money. Capitalism gone mad, unfettered, unregulated. And all credit, although I think all of the Christmas adverts again have come out too early, all credit to John Lewis for their advert. Not one table laden with food in sight. Very toned down, very, very simple, and a beautiful, beautiful message which I am going to revisit in weeks to come. So, I don't know about you, I find it all deeply upsetting that the secular Advent, if you like, precedes our time of remembrance. It's not right. And of course, it's even worse because what happens on Boxing Day? The trees come down. The decorations come down straight away when we're supposed to be feasting for another 12 days. Oh, God. It makes me mad. But maybe there is a link between Remembrance Sunday and Christmas. Maybe there is a link. And I end with these words, which are anonymous, but words that we would all do well to ponder today and in the days to come. Peace is not won by man's eternal strife. Peace is the power of God in human life. It dwells with joy and love, is manifest in grace. The star above his crib, the light that is his face. Amen.